216th Planning Committee of 2021. We welcome everybody to the meeting tonight and acknowledge that we are on Zoom. And I'd like to acknowledge that I am meeting on the land of the Wadawurrung, the traditional owners of the land, and would like to pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. And for wherever you are zooming in from, put your respect to the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people from the country that you're on. I'd like to introduce the panel to you. We have got, and I'm going to go around my screen, I've got Councillor Jim Mason, I've got Councillor Anthony Aitken, Councillor Trent Sullivan, Councillor Peter Murray and Councillor Belinda Maloney. Welcome. We do have officers with us tonight too. So I've got Joanne Van Slagren, who's the Manager of City Development, John Rush, who's the Coordinator of Statutory Planning, and I've got Hugh Griffiths, the Team Leader Statutory Planning, and I've got Leanne Stockley, who is the Principal Planner. Rightio, so the procedure for tonight, I might just run through that quickly and then we can get our guests in. The procedure will be that the officers will present a brief summary of the written report to the committee, and then the objectors will have some opportunity to speak to their objection, and then we'll ask them to speak for approximately 3 minutes, and then the applicant will be able to have the applicant will be able to speak to their application for no longer than sort of 5 or 10 minutes at that time. Then the panel can ask any questions of any applicant or objector or officers at any point in time. I'll call for some questions after the presenters have finished their presentation. At the end, we'll further discuss the matter and then we'll hopefully make a decision. Let's see. The decision of this committee is the final decision of council, acting under delegated authority. If anybody is aggrieved by this decision, there is an opportunity to appeal to VCAT, and our staff can help you with that process. I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the last meeting of the 25th of May 2021. Councillor Sullivan to move, seconder, Councillor Maloney, thank you. Anyone to declare any declarations of interest? No? All right, but the matter for consideration for the first matter is application PP 15182020, and it's 550 Sandy Creek Road, Little River. Jake, would you mind, let me just hold for 2 seconds. Sorry, dealing with some matters that are here in the background. So I would like to open it up to, I think it's Leanne Stockley, who's the officer, to present their case, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor. The subject site of 555 Sandy Creek Road is located approximately 11 kilometres north of the township of Lara and 1.1 kilometres east of Bacchus Marsh Road. The land has an area of 153 hectares and in between 1984 and 2013 has been used for sand extraction. The site is highly disturbed in the eastern portion, with sand extraction from this portion of the site complete. The southwest portion of the site is partially disturbed, with topsoil having been removed for various drying pits. The northwestern part is primarily undisturbed and contains vegetation. The owner of the land has advised that they do not wish to undertake any further extraction activity in the eastern portion and would like to now rehabilitate this part of the site. Usually, an operator who has permission for an extraction activity will undertake the rehabilitation at the end of the extraction period as part of their approval. This step of rehabilitation was not undertaken at the time of extraction ceased due to the relevant planning permit and work plan expiring. The operator now wishes to rehabilitate this eastern portion due to concerns for the current state of the site, where there's an open excavation, and the desire to reinstate the waterways that pass through the site, and that the land should be returned to a natural state, given there is no further resources available to this eastern part. The application documents describe the extent of works required and separate these into 5 phases, which are detailed in the application plans. These phases will occur as suitable fill material becomes available from other construction projects in the state. The fill will be received for use in the rehabilitation works will accord with fill material classification criteria as prescribed by the Environmental Protection Authority, their Industrial Waste Resource Guideline, Soil Hazard Categorisation and Management Guidelines, and fact sheets of the EPA publication 1624. The application states that procedures will be established and implemented to ensure that only fill material, as classified in accordance with these EPA guidelines or approved by the EPA, is accepted at the site. When the appropriately classified fill material is available, it's envisaged that approximately 30 trucks will access the site per day. The applicant's traffic impact assessment has determined that this addition will not result in a large increase in the volume of traffic on nearby roads. Council's traffic engineer and transport units have reviewed the proposal and require the truck movements to be in accordance with the Lara Traffic Management Plan adopted by Council in March 2020. The applicant has accepted and are supportive of conditions to the permit to facilitate this. The route nominated in the Lara Traffic Management Plan is south from the site to the intersection of Forest Road North and Windermere Road, and then west along Windermere to Bacchus Marsh Road. The Lara Traffic Management Plan includes in its actions the upgrade of Sandy Creek Road north of the site as one of the short to medium term projects to be addressed. When the upgrade is complete, traffic to the site will come from Bacchus Marsh Road through Little River Ripley Road and south along the upgraded section of Sandy Creek Road. The application was notified via sign on the site and letters to adjoining and surrounding landowners and occupiers. 16 objections were lodged. Objectors raised concerns for general truck use in Lara, controls on the type of fill to be used for the rehabilitation, controls on environmental outcomes of the rehabilitation and waterway reinstatement works. One objection sought a commitment that the land would not be used for extraction works again. This matter cannot be addressed as part of this assessment process, as it is a matter for assessment as part of a separate planning application if and when the landowner wishes to pursue further extraction. The applicant provided a written response to concerns raised, and this was circulated to the objectors. The applicant confirmed that fill would be in accordance with the relevant EPA standards and that the truck route would be in accordance with the Lara Traffic Management Plan adopted by Council in 2020. As a result of the circulated response, 2 objectors have withdrawn their concerns. As part of the assessment process, relevant external authorities were consulted with the EPA, the Earth Resources Regulation Branch and Vic Roads, having no objection to the proposal. Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning and Corangamite Catchment Management Authority have not objected, subject to recommended conditions to be included in any permit to issue. Their conditions, in addition with Council's Environment Unit conditions, will ensure an appropriate environmental outcome for the site and the local catchment. The applicant has accepted the recommended conditions of DELP and CCMA. With regard to the planning context, the land is within the farming zone and covered by the Significant Landscape Overlay Schedule 1, and part it's covered by the Bushfire Management Overlay. The planning policy framework supports the proposal, directing that development should seek to provide enhanced environmental outcomes and that planning should facilitate the rehabilitation of exhausted extraction sites. It is considered that the environmental and landscape character benefits to be gained by the proposed rehabilitation works outweigh the perceived amenity impacts. Conditions have been recommended to ensure a safe and appropriate delivery of the rehabilitation project, and the applicant has been consulted to ensure the requirements on the operation are reasonable and can be abided by. Post-completion of the report, it's been noted that the application commits to a construction environmental management plan that shall include fill material acceptance procedures and controls. This commitment is recommended to be included as Part H of Condition 3 for a CEMP, being the Construction Environment Management Plan. Further, the responsible authority would request the documentation be made available when and if required. As such, it's recommended that the proposal be supported and a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued, subject to the recommended conditions included in the report, with the addition of Part H, as just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leanne. At this stage, do any councillors have any questions for Leanne at this point? No? Okay. Well, yes, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Leanne, I just would like you to clarify, please. A number of adjustments were made from DELP and CCMA and later accordingly agreed to. Was that then communicated with the complainants, and had there been opportunities for them to discuss these?
Thank you, Councillor Mason. No, I'm not aware that there were any adjustments made by CCMA and DELP. It was more a matter of them responding to our referral and giving their recommended conditions. There was then a sort of commitment from the applicant as to whether they could abide by those conditions. Those particular discussions happened between the council officer and the applicant and did not involve any of the objectors.
Thank you. That was the essence of what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. To our support officer, Jake, would you mind popping through the first objector, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be admitting Barry White into the meeting.
Thank you. Welcome, Barry. If you can hear us and you can see us, just to make sure that's the case.
Yep.
Excellent. Welcome, Barry. I can hear you and I can see you, so welcome to the meeting.
Thanks,
this is the Planning Committee meeting, which we're talking about 555 Sandy Creek Road, and we've got around about 3 minutes or so for you to share your objection with us, and then it could be me that says, Barry, you're at time, or you might hear an alarm, or you may even get muted, just to give you the heads up. That might be the case. Please feel free to start your time now.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, councillors. My presentation will be brief. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear that. But I might say at the outset, we are very, we'd like to commend the people involved in this, particularly Hanson, actually taking this action to rehabilitate what has been really seriously damaged land area. The action is very positive. The action that was taken by the applicant's representative also has been very positive, and I think it's an exemplar for community consultation, because he did go out of his way to spend time with us and explain to the group any concerns that we had. We did have concerns initially, but that was very positive. Also to the planning assessment and the planner involved, I thought it was a very fair assessment and very comprehensive. And I'd also like to make a special note of the traffic engineering assessment, because this is probably the biggest issue associated with this application. That is the impact of additional traffic, even though we're only talking around 60 trucks extra per day to what is already very high volume of truck movements. And you're aware that that's been a major contentious issue within the Lara Traffic Management Plan and has been addressed. But the fact is that it did add to the traffic load, and we were concerned about how that would be managed. It was good to see the reference in the report to the Lara Traffic Management Plan and the recommendations of that, and a particular note of the basically the indication to support the sealing of Sandy Creek Road to the north, which will allow heavy trucks, quarry trucks, to move to the north to Little River Ripley Road and then on to Backsmarsh Road and away from Forest Road and also the Lara Township. So that really has been a very important issue. That's been probably our most contentious issue, and the fact that it's been addressed and recognised is a very positive move. Of course, we note that it's a high priority to do that, that is upgrade that road and the sealing of the road. and we hope that it does come within the time frame that's indicated in the Lara Traffic Management Plan. A couple of brief points, if I could make them. Just the hours of operation, that's a bit open-ended. I mean, it refers to daylight. This might be picked up by others, but daylight during summer is a long period. We would like to have a little bit more of an indication of what the actual hours of operation will be. And we note that that point has been picked up on a couple of occasions within the report, but we raised that issue again. Secondly, one comment with regard to page 26 of the report, which we were concerned about, and that was the response to one of the objections concerning road safety, and again, Sandy Creek Road. And the comment was made that if road conditions provide the potential for risk due to whatever reason, road users should adapt to those circumstances. Now, frankly, we find that a little bit disingenuous. I mean, that's not the responsibility of the road users, whether it be cyclists or auto or truck operators. It is actually a council responsibility. So when we talk about upgrading of Sandy Creek Road, we are talking about...
Sorry, Barry, I've just had you muted at that point. Sorry about that. Jake, would you mind just unmuting Barry just for a moment, just while we ask if any councillors have questions of Barry at this point? Is there any councillors that have questions for Barry? Councillor Aiken?
Barry, can I just ask if the road is upgraded to what was mentioned under the Lara Traffic Management Plan as a proposed works as one of the recommendations in that plan, does that mitigate a lot of the opposition then to this particular proposal?
It does, yeah. Right. I mean, that is the central issue, I think, that's concerned the Township of Lara Care Group. And yes, that would mitigate a lot of the concern.
So would you be encouraged, the council, if they did make a recommendation to support the application, that it should go hand in hand with a clear time frame for the Sandy Creek Road upgrade as well too? So shouldn't be making the decisions in isolation. Council should be considering this decision has an implication for other decisions as well too. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a collateral issue. I agree totally with the way you've summed it up. And we would see this as an important part of the agreement to go ahead with this application. It is council responsibility. We understand that, not the applicant, but nevertheless, it is tied to this development.
Thank you. Any other councillors having questions? Councillor Murray.
Probably it gets right on the back of what Councillor Aiken has just questioned, but Barry, you sounded more like a supporter of the proposal than an objector. Would that be correct?
I think that is correct. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the few proposals we've been very pleased to support because it is rehabilitating what has been really a very damaged landscape, and that is a very positive move. So we support it, but subject to the condition that we don't exacerbate the road safety and the road conditions. That's the major contention for us. Could I just make one point, Chair, that there is an error on page 34 on the last para that refers to what makes the comment right at the bottom. At present, this will result in movements via Forest Road South, Windermere Road and Bacchus Marsh Road. It should be Forest Road North, not Forest Road South.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll make that amendment because they are two separate roads. Any other councillors at this stage got a question for Barry? Well, Barry, I just have another question for you. In relation to you obviously, when you saw this application and you drew up your objection, you obviously didn't have an opportunity at that point to see the officer's, planned, permitted recommendation. So in your view, the recommendations, do they go far enough in your view? What's your view of the recommendations?
Look, we do support the recommendation. We think it covers a lot of the areas of concern that we have because all of this is dependent on them actually taking place, being implemented. They've been identified. Now we need action to make sure that they are put into practice. We would like to see an ongoing monitoring of developments there. I mean, this is a 10-year program, so we don't want it just to be ticked off and everybody goes their own way. We would like to see it monitored so that the conditions are enforced.
Thank you very much, Barry, and I'd like to thank you for your submission and thank you for taking the time out today.
Thanks, Kath.
Thank you. Jake, would you mind allowing the next person in to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll be entering
Marilyn Pettit. Yep.
Support the recommendation.
Hello, Marilyn. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting.
Hi, Carly.
Hi.
I'll get rid of this.
You're just going to get rid of that. Thank you. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting, Marilyn, and this is in relation to 555 Sandy Creek Road in Little River. How are you going with that?
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to turn it off. I couldn't watch it on screen. Sorry, Carly. Can you hear me?
That's all right. I can hear you. So welcome to the meeting. This is in relation to 555 Sandy Creek Road, as you know.
Yes.
And so you've got around 3 or so minutes, Marilyn, and what might happen is I might try and interject, or you may actually just get the mute button quickly, and then I'll offer it to other councillors to ask any questions if they have them. So over to you, Marilyn.
Thanks, Carly, and good evening, councillors. I shall read this through quickly. I live in a rural property on Sandy Creek Road. I support this application in principle as rehabilitation of the badly degraded land in a significant landscape overlay and farming zone is desirable. However, in considering approval of this application, I believe the following issues need to be addressed. My concerns are further heavy vehicle traffic for Sandy Creek Road, the lack of a construction environmental plan before the approval of this permit in the operating days and hours. Sandy Creek Road is already under pressure from heavy vehicle traffic, heavy quarry traffic. This application is proposing to add another 60 trucks a day. Sandy Creek Road is a 6-metre pavement and in many areas has no verges. Heavy vehicles over 4.5 tonne have a width of 2.5 metres, which gives a 45 centimetre clearance to the white line. To safely accommodate passing heavy trucks and trailers carrying loads of up to 60 tonne, traffic is forced off the bitumen, causing constant breakdown of road edges and potholes. Sandy Creek Road is already the source of constant complaints. This is the 3rd time I've addressed councillors about the dangers of this road to road users. The applicant's traffic safety and impact assessment report in its breakdown of daily traffic counts on Sandy Creek Road from October to November 2017 lists road users as 73% light vehicles, 11% medium vehicles and 16% heavy vehicles. They estimate their application will add an additional 7% of heavy vehicles a day. This means almost 1 vehicle in 4 will be a heavy vehicle. Since the 2017 report, there's been an increase in quarry activity in heavy traffic and also motorists travelling to the Ford Proving Ground who liken their daily commute to running the gauntlet. The applicant accepts there is a conflict with other road users, particularly cyclists, because a narrow width of the road does not allow trucks to pass cyclists without crossing the centre of the road. Despite this, they consider the risks to be relatively minor. The applicant's traffic impact report prepared on the 12th of July 2019 states no crashes had occurred in the past 5 years. There have been several incidents since. On the 4th of February, 2 men were taken to the Royal Melbourne Hospital following a crash on Sandy Creek Road. Vehicles went through our fence into our paddock and police and air ambulance attended. A few months back, a woman was run off the road and finished in a ditch with car airbags blown. There was no verge in this part of the road. In another incident, a truck lost its trailer, which ended up through the fence and into the park, taking out a tree in the process. I've been run off the road on numerous occasions and suffered an instant blowout after hitting an unrepaired deep pothole. There is also the added hazard to motorists of kangaroos crossing the road. Roadkill is a common sight. In answer to concerns raised about more trucks adding to the dangers of the road, the applicant has stated, and I quote, and Barry quoted, that individuals are responsible for and required to drive or ride with due care. If road conditions provide the potential for risk due to whatever reason, road users should adapt to those circumstances. The responsibility is not a matter for the planning system to be involved with, unquote. In 2016, the administrators of the City of Greater Geelong commissioned at considerable expense an independent Section 191 Planning Committee to hear submissions and make a recommendation to Council in regard to an application.
Thank you, Marilyn. Sorry to interrupt you there. We've just gone over time. Marilyn, if you don't mind. What I will do, Marilyn, is to ask if there's any councillors that have got questions for you. Councillors, is there anyone that's got questions for Marilyn at this point? Councillor Aiken?
Marilyn,
I'm not sure. Marilyn, are you there?
I don't have. Do you know you've been muted, Marilyn?
Sorry, Marilyn, we have muted you because of the time. The time just expired. I'm just going to throw to Councillor Aiken for any questions there, Marilyn.
Okay, Marilyn, look at this is actually a similar question that I asked Barry White. So, if the Sandy Creek Road is upgraded to the standard that was mentioned in the Lara Traffic Management Plan, would that appease your concerns and objection to the proposed planning permit?
Just unmute yourself, Marilyn. Sorry. There you go.
Okay. Does that mean the proposal to send the traffic north, as recommended by your Council of the City of Greater Geelong engineering officers?
Councillor, I can just ask you a question again.
Yeah, Marilyn, if council does adopt the recommendation and that's mentioned in the Lara Traffic Management Plan for Sandy Creek Road, which does include encouraging the trucks to move that way, but it also includes improving the quality of that particular road, would that address your concerns associated with this particular planning permit?
I think the Sandy Creek Road would need to have a major upgrade to support the amount of heavy vehicles now safely and the extra vehicles proposed. The answer is to send the traffic north away from the Yuyangs precinct, and that's your engineers have recognised that, and it's part of the Yuyangs, not the Yuyangs, the Lara Traffic Management Plan.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors got questions for Marilyn? No, Marilyn?
I had a couple of other issues about operation hours and the construction environmental management plan. I can't put that forward.
We've got you. We've read your objections as well as part of the paperwork there, Marilyn. So I won't be allowed to allow extra time. But just note that Barry has touched on the operating hours as well, and I've got a couple of other people to come in at the moment. So at this point, we'll leave that as your submission, if that's okay. So thank you very much, Marilyn, for your time. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Jake, would you mind admitting the next person, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We believe we're entering Andy under the ID Forrest RD's iPhone.
Okay. Just waiting for that to join. That's going to take a little while. Are you there, Andy? Is that you joining now? I love technology. Okay, Jake, would you mind taking that person out once more and we can see if we can get them to connect afterwards? Who else have we got in the waiting room, please?
We have Peter Dolder, Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Welcome, Peter. Can you hear me?
He's still connecting, Kylie, and it does reflect the northern suburbs and rural areas' internet capacity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Officer Jake, would you mind admitting Andy at this point, so in case it takes a little while that might be able to join as well, please? Thank you.
And an option might be turn the video off and just have the
there we go.
Kylie. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Peter, you can hear us clearly?
Sure can, yes.
Excellent. Welcome, Peter. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. This is in relation to 555 Sandy Creek Road in Little River. We've got around about 3 minutes or so for you, if you don't mind. And then you may get muted at some point, but I'll try and catch you before that. Please feel free to take the floor for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present. My name is Peter Dolder and I'm the Operations Manager of the Ford Yuyang Proving Ground, situated at 760 Sandy Creek Road. Our facility is part of the Ford Motor Company Global Vehicle Engineering Testing and Development Centres, and prior to COVID-19, our site workforce was approximately 450 workers on site. This leads to approximately 600 daily vehicle movements along Sandy Creek Road and Granite Road. This is a combination of both personal vehicles and test vehicles. So our concerns are the high potential of heavy vehicle interactions with one of these 600 odd vehicle movements. At particular risk is the crossroad intersection that is part of our site entrance. Further risks have been identified at the locations where trucks will exit the proposed worksite, and this additional heavy vehicle load proposed by the planned works will increase the potential of an accident. I note that the applicant's response haven't really addressed our concerns. The revision to the truck routes as described does not address issue of truck movements. It is estimated by the applicant to be the 60 truck movements per day or 14,000 truck movements per year, travelling at a speed on a single carriage road lined with trees with minimal verges. There is a comment regarding a completion of the sealing of the gravel of the section of Sandy Creek Road to the north. This proposed permit condition nominates this as a required the preferred truck route, and this will further compound the heavy vehicle numbers travelling past our site entrance. Applicant's suggestion that Sandy Creek Road speed limit be reduced is not actually part of the applicant's powers. I believe this is either a City of Geelong or a Vic Roads ability to change the speed limits. I would like to point out that the applicant's traffic management plan is not correct and up to date. The traffic management study is dated 2017, and our site headcount has increased 30% since that traffic counting was conducted. The study also lists that there have been no incidents along Sandy Creek Road. This is incorrect, and I did listen to Marilyn just before, but according to the publicly available Vic Roads traffic crash data, there have been many occasions of incidences, and even to the stage where a lot of my employees have been first responders to the accidents. There is a reference to the Lara traffic management plan where it is considered the dangers of Sandy Creek Road, and that many of these are not yet closed out. It notes that Granite Road will be sealed. Well, that hasn't happened, although it has been marked as complete. In summary, Ford Australia, we view this, the further speed restrictions and a further traffic management plan would assist to mitigate the safety risk without unduly hampering the applicant's proposed activities. I thank you for the time.
Thank you very much for your submission, Peter. Councillors, I'll open it up if you've got any questions of Peter at this point.
Kylie, it's not a question to Peter, but it's to the officers. So should we wait to the end? But it does relate to Peter's question about the traffic management plan and the information that Peter's provided to us about the Ford Proving Ground and the number of movements.
Sure, you can ask that of the officers now, yeah, Councillor Aiken, if you like. Yeah,
in front of Peter then. Can the officers respond to that that statement that the traffic management plan doesn't reflect the current usage and employment rates at the Ford site? And what is the sort of baseline that we should be expecting and understand in terms of safety for truck movements and car movements on Sandy Creek Road then?
Sure, I'm opening that up. John, will you be taking that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Aiken, and also thank you, Peter, for your submission. The traffic management plan at this time has been very difficult. A lot of traffic consultants are perplexed as to what sort of data to provide since COVID. So one of the difficulties they have is there's no point in providing data in 2020 or even up to 2019. And sometimes they just don't have the data that comes from either Vic Roads or the latest data that they can do. So there is the constraint of providing how many vehicles per day come along the site. So we recognise and just acknowledge that. The second part is that, of course, there's 942 vehicles per day that travel on that road. The road does have a capacity to take up to 3,000 vehicle movements per day. At the moment, what we're currently experiencing, according to that 2017 data, is we have, of those 942 vehicles, 16% of the site is occupied already by truck movements. So that's 110 vehicles per day. And the proposal has rounded up to 7% per day of new truck movements that would come into the site as a maximum. There's actually 6.36% of the number of vehicles that would be increased if this proposal was allowed to go ahead. So what we're looking at there is an additional 60 vehicle movements per day or truck movements per day on top of that already existing 110 movements. Does that answer your question, Councillor Aiken?
Actually, that was an excellent response, John. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillors got questions of Peter while we have them with us? Peter, thank you for taking the time to speak to your submission. We really appreciate it, and we will have a couple more before we make a decision. Thank you very much, Peter. All right, Jake, if you wouldn't mind, I think we've got Andy here on there. Andy, would you mind turning on your camera and unmuting yourself? Welcome to the Planning Committee. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good to speak to you all again.
Thank you, and welcome to the Planning Committee. You've got around 3 or so minutes to share your objection with us. You may get muted, and we may then unmute you to ask any questions of you, so please feel free to go ahead.
No worries. Thank you very much, councillors, for listening to me tonight. I just like this. My main objection is no more work until this planning permit should be placed on hold until the works that were recommended in the management plan be done. Simple as that. I don't see, you can quote numbers as before, but that road is absolutely in rack and ruin. I don't know if you've ever driven down it or ridden down it or whatever. Sandy Creek Road is a mess, an absolute mess. The whole joint needs work done on it. We've got great infrastructure. We need the infrastructure in place before we can have these great industries keep going. We need a bit of catch-up done here now. And to go and put more load on it is just ridiculous. I applaud the fact that they're upgrading the quarry and revegetating and all the rest of it, but still, that's another 60 trucks per day. And I don't know, I was out there at Forest Road working at my mate's place, and the numbers of trucks that are barrelling up and down Forest Road North at the moment is just phenomenal. Really is. It's like a highway now. They say, the previous fellow, they're saying it can cope with the load. I don't think so. It's just, in my opinion, the road is just a mess. And so we need to get this Sandy Creek Road tidied up. We need to get the extension done past Fords. We need to make that safe for the Ford workers. I appreciate what Peter's saying there. That is a great option. It needs to be implemented. It needs to be done. We all know that. And no more other works loads on that until that's done. Then go for it. You've got a good infrastructure in place. They can all nick off down Bacchus Marsh Road then and not impact anyone. So we can't just keep paying lip service. We'll do this and then we grant the permit and then we'll do this. No. Let's do the work that we're supposed to do, get the funds in place. I believe the government's on board with all that. Let's just do it. Then we can get more industries involved and make use of the resources we have out beside the quarry there.
Thank you for your submission, Andy. Thank you. Councillors, I'd just like to ask if you've got any questions of Andy whilst he's with us. Andy, I have a question for you in relation to the new truck restrictions that have been put on that section of the road. Are you noticing a difference? Are they still using that road even though the restrictions are on there in the north part of that road?
The Forest Road South you're talking about?
Yes, that Forest Road South, the north, from the south. They're not blocked from the north.
The very first night it stopped, we still had one or two go through. I think Carnegie Strike got belted around the ears about that. Then the signage come up, and look, it has been fantastic for Lara. I must thank you, people at the councillors, and also the management people from the traffic team there at the City of Grey Geelong. I haven't had a formal chance to. I wanted to come along to a meeting, and here I am tonight saying this. I really congratulate everyone for their work in getting that through. The sound levels in town are just dramatically different. My mates can come around and have a beer with me and watch the footy on my deck now on a Friday night. So seeing the weather's been so mild for the winter months, and they're not complaining about trucks barrelling through and thinking, oh, my God, I know what you're complaining about now. So thanks again. I can't, thank you enough for that.
Thank you. That wasn't a Dorothy Dixer, by the way. That was
that's all right.
It sounded like it. And what's going to happen now? We'll be getting complaints about cold chisel being played at high levels because the neighbours will be complaining about the noise of when drinking at your place.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for your submission. Right. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good on you.
Jake, would you mind admitting Robert, please, is the applicant?
You should be joining now, Madam Chair.
Welcome, Robert. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome to the Planning Committee. And as you know, this is in relation to 555 Sandy Creek Road in Little River. You've got sort of about 5 or so minutes to present your applicant's position, and then we may jump in and ask you some questions post that. But thank you very much for coming, and feel free to start.
Thank you very much, councillors, and thank you very much for taking the time so late in the evening. I'm Rob Francis, Hanson employee. I'm the Project Development Manager. We just wanted to make a few points. The site's got many issues, and rehabilitating it now makes good sense. It's been mothballed for too long, and to be honest, it's been an embarrassment to us and probably the rest of the community for too long as well. It's a great opportunity to do it now rather than wait for some other opportunity in the future. And I just might note that City of Greater Geelong is one of the few councils that require a planning permit for this type of activity. But we have an obligation to make the site safe, but we need council to allow us a permit to help keep, everyone safe, including any trespassers that might come into the site. And it's a good opportunity to get the joint venture two big companies to do the right thing now. I noticed that through my talking to the community, talking to the Lara Care Group and the nearby neighbours, that traffic is a big issue. So I think you've done an excellent job of addressing that problem with the Lara Traffic Management Plan. And we acknowledge that our traffic management assessment is out of date. A number of things have changed since then, and we've been in contact with Rowan Lund through the Yang's Extractive Industry Stakeholder Group while it was going about truck routes and keeping away from Grants Bridge, etc. We agree that the environmental benefits outweigh the small increase in truck traffic, and your officers have done a great job of putting in robust permit conditions that require us to do extra work before we can actually go ahead and provide extra information before we can go ahead and start work. And we've got support from DELP, the Corangamite Catchment Management Authority, and ERR, who drew their submission. And one of the objectors from our largest neighbour that almost surrounds our block has withdrawn that objection. The other one still stands. So the conditions will cover off vegetation, weeds, contamination of fill and water. So all of those things will be dealt with within the conditions. I just want to say we do have control over drivers that access the site, whether they're our employees, contractors, or somebody else. At other sites, we've taken the action where drivers haven't towed the line is to ban them from site, which doesn't sound like much, but if they've got a mortgage on their home to cover the cost of their truck and they're banned from working, that's that's a bigger stick than a fine. And we're happy to take feedback from information from members of the public, which we've done at other sites, to just with, if they spot something going on, we can then look at that registration. Every truck's registration, we know who they are when they come to the site. Therefore, we can take action with them directly or with their employee. The EPA has significantly increased its powers, which will come into force on the 1st of July. I think that's a result of what you might have seen happen down at Broderick Road and the recycling fires, etc. So there's a significant change there that will make sure that operators like us do the right thing. You might notice on my background, I've deliberately used a backdrop from another site that we've rehabilitated a former quarry, and we now have kangaroos, a bee farm, and solar panels on there. I won't go, happy to answer questions about that. With regard to the stakeholders, I want to thank Barry White for his kind words about the proactive engagement we did, and thank the other objectors for their input. With regard to our history, we've done a little bit of work there already. We put in a drain along the front of the property, which directed water downstream, and since then the neighbour's 9-hectare dam, large dam, hasn't run dry, whereas prior to that it did. So this will be a cost neutral exercise for us at best, with no profit. So it's really an obligation on us to do it, and we're seeking the permit to fulfil that, both moral, environmental and regulatory obligation. So I think rather than leave a permanent scar on the land, we think that now is the time, because the fill is available in the market at the moment due to Victoria's big build and a number of other things, and the owners are willing to get this underway at the moment. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, if you'd like to ask any questions, feel free to ask away. Whilst you, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Rob, one of the things I noted was the downstream water flow and the CCMA recommendations that even if this permit is granted, you'll still need to check and agree with the downstream water people, landowners, sorry, in terms of water flow and possible flooding.
Correct. Yes. Well, they did say that, and we're happy to do that. We're already engaged prior to lodging the application. We engaged with the immediate downstream neighbours at the large property there, the Pettits at Woolloomoolanta Station. I believe they support that with regard to water flow. There'd be water flows that would need to then flow on from there. So I believe there are conditions in place that we would need to do a hydraulic report and have that report commissioned and approved by officers to their satisfaction before they would allow their permit to be activated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I've got a question for you, Rob. I think there's some fear in the community around the type of fill that will come to a quarry like this, and especially in terms of when you mentioned the big build and you mentioned fill that's available. Is there some concern from the community around the type of fill that will come, especially if it's something that they're trying to get rid of? How does your company look at the fill in terms of hopefully it's not contaminated, etc.?
Yes, well, look, we've got we'll have a fill management plan for that and a procedure. So every truckload that comes in will need to have EPA compliant paperwork, which the format of that is changing on the 1st of July. But there's whoever's bringing the material in has to sign off that it came from which site it came from and what that site was. And if it's come from a site that could potentially carry contamination, then there'll be testing reports as required by the EPA. And at other sites, sometimes these reports Where it's a large site, particularly big build site, it might be hundreds or more than 1,000 pages of testing information that we get, it's up to the producer of the field to provide a report to the satisfaction of EPA and ourselves and provide a consultant statement. That's for the larger jobs, smaller jobs perhaps not, but it's all under the EPA regulations. And if we do something that is in breach of those regulations, then the EPA will come in and use their new enforcement powers.
Fantastic. Thank you for the answer. Thank you. Councillors, any further questions of Rob while we have him with us? Okay. Thank you very much, Rob. We'll deliberate now and make a decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jake, would you mind? I don't think we have anyone else, do we, Jake?
Hello, Madam Chair. No, that's right. That's it for the last of the speakers.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. At this point in time, I would like to ask councillors, have you got any comments or questions in relation to the proposed recommendations of officers? I have a question, I guess, then of officers. So, Leanne or John, in relation to the recommendation that you've put forward, you've added 3H. Is that correct? So that's around the fill of the fill material.
Yes, that's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so that reads that fill material acceptance procedure and controls, and that there must be documents regarding that available to the responsible authority. Is that the right? Is that the right paragraph that I've got there that you gave us earlier? Right.
Yeah, that's right. That's to be included in the construction environmental management plan.
Okay, so that'll be so councillors. That'll be a slight amendment that'll be putting in at 3H of the recommended responsibilities. I think, in relation, I think I will move the recommendation of the officers. I'm comfortable that we have the officers have thoroughly looked through all of the objections and really looked to cover most of the referral authorities and covered most of their concerns. I think the real concern for me was the traffic management moving of the trucks. Now, I can confirm that at the moment the trucks will come south towards Windermere Road, and then they will go to Forest Road and then Windermere Road out to Bacchus Marsh. And the view is that once Sandy Creek Road has been upgraded to the point where it can accept that type of vehicle, then the trucks will then be required to go north and then off to Little River Ripley Road out to Bacchus Marsh Road. So I'm quite comfortable that this plan is clearly has the view that this Sandy Creek Road will be done, and once it is done, it doesn't require any further amendment because it will be then saying that the trucks will need to then go north once that road is a suitable thing. So, and looking at all the other recommendations, I think it does clearly cover most of the objectors. And from what I heard from Rob Francis, the applicant, I think the company has a clear policy that they will listen to community members and making sure that if there are complaints that they will hear them. So I look forward to a site that can be rehabilitated. It's not like it's not like it's a quarry application necessarily that we're taking things out. We're trying to rehabilitate the site, which is something that I'm quite keen on. So that's my moving of the motion. Would somebody like to second that motion? Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Murray?
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair. Look, when I first saw that this was a quarry and out close to the Yuyangs, I had my real concerns, but I think this is a real positive application. The mine was last in service to 2013, so I presume it's been sitting idle since then. So I see this as a real opportunity for the company to return it to its natural state with a suitable fill. After listening to Rob Francis, I see, he said it's their obligation to do this. So I'm encouraged by that. And I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Anyone else got a comment on this? Councillor Mason?
I also support the motion, Councillor Grisbeck, and following on from Councillor Murray, it's not only the operator's obligation, but in fact, I believe it's the city's obligation to facilitate as well as possible the rehabilitation of areas such as this. And I congratulate the officers in the work that they've done to facilitate that, in that there were a lot of objections and they've been attended to as far as I can see. And there's going to be an outcome where the environment and the landscape character is vastly improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors to make comment? No? So just in closing then, in terms of this recommendation, I'd like to thank all the people that have made submissions today. I think that the community has shown that they do care about the environment by saying that they are supportive of the rehabilitation, but they do understand that we are trying as a council to put those recommendations in that really affect the traffic movements and the traffic, the environment in which we live, to making sure that those transport movements are within tolerance as well. So I think, we're weighing up that balance of rehabilitating the land, which is what I think we should be doing, versus the truck movements. And I'm hoping that we can expedite soon the Sandy Creek Road improvements, because it is showing that there are a lot of people using that road now, especially, with the Ford Proving Ground having been there now and looks to ramp up in the future. So that'll be another topic of discussion. So in saying that, councillors, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of this recommendation before us? Excellent. Thank you very much, and that is carried. We will jump on now to another Zoom link, which is in your diaries, and we will see you for the next part of. Welcome back to the meeting 216 of the Planning Committee for City of Greater Geelong. And I'll just reiterate that we are, I'd like to acknowledge, that we are on the land of the Wadawurrung people, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and for wherever you are, to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that you're meeting on as well. I'd like to introduce quickly the panel to you as they are on my screen. So Councillor Murray, I've got Councillor Maloney, Councillor Mason, Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Aiken. We also have officers with us tonight. We've got Joanne Van Slegeren, who's the Manager of City Development, John Rush, who's the Coordinator of Statutory Planning. We've got Rory O'Loughlin, who's the Team Leader of Statutory Planning, and Claire McVilly, who's the Senior Stat Planner. We go through the details of the meeting tonight, and we've got we'll have the officers speak in relation to the application. Then we will hear the objections, and we don't have anyone here with us tonight for the applicant. So then the decision of this committee will be made after that, and that will be final under the active delegated authority. This matter tonight is planning permit number 426-2020. It is for 20 Idris Avenue, Lovely Banks. So I might hand over now to Claire, the officer, to go through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, councillors. So the address is 20 Idris Avenue, Lovely Banks. It's located in a rural living zone and not included within any overlays. The site is regular in shape and has a total area of approximately 0.7 hectares. The site is occupied by an existing dwelling which contains 5 bedrooms, including a craft room, pool room and a garage. And there's other outbuildings and a chicken pen at the rear of the site. And 10 car parking spaces are shown on the site plan that was submitted. In terms of the proposal, the application seeks retrospective approval for the use of a disability services facility which includes care and various activities catered for disabled people. The majority of the activities take place indoors, with some breaks and activities happening outdoors. So this could include playing on the playground, kicking a football, or interacting with the farm animals on the site. In terms of the clients, so there's a maximum of 8 clients who will be on the site at any one time, and they are supervised on a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio, dependent on their level of disability. In terms of the hours and the days proposed, so the application includes daily group activities from 9 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. So the activities predominantly happen indoors, and they include arts and crafts, cooking, gardening, female groups, friendship groups, and also a men's group. So that could include darts, music, or some exercise outside. And then from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays, the proposal includes an after-school care program with similar programs to the day. So the proposal includes a maximum of 8 clients at any one time, regardless of the time, so from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. In terms of the animals on the site, there's a number of animals at the rear of the site. So these include 2 sheep, 1 alpaca, 1 pony, and 19 chickens. So the clients may assist in looking after the animals, so including brushing, washing, trimming and feeding the animals from time to time. In relation to the staff, so the maximum number of staff is 9. So clients are, as I said, they're supervised on a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio, depending on their level of disability. So the number 9 for the staff also includes the 2 farm hands who look after the animals. In relation to advertising, the application was advertised by a sign on the site and letters to the adjoining dwellings and properties in Idris Avenue. 30 objections were received following the notice period. So the concerns raised a number of issues, including traffic impacts, the body corporate rules and council local laws, the use and what it was categorised as, and suggestion that it's more of a childcare centre, the clarity and the quality of the information that was submitted, existing and future enforcement concerns, amenity impacts including noise and smell, concerns with the number of toilets, the environmental and existing infrastructure concerns regarding runoff and wastewater, the precedent the proposal may have, property devaluation and inconsistency with the zone and the relevant local policy. So no consultation meeting was held with the applicants and the objectors. So the proposal has been considered against the various policies, so the rural living zone and the state and local planning policies, and is considered to result in an acceptable outcome given that the clients are limited to 8. They are supervised and conditions of the permit allow 2 hours of outdoor activity. So it's recommended that the proposal be supported subject to conditions.
Thank you very much for that, Claire. Councillors, do you have any questions of Claire before we start speaking to the objections? Councillor Aiken. Oh, sorry. Just had Ali had his hand up. Councillor Aiken.
Claire, you've said we've been advised this is a retrospective application because they've actually already been trading on the site. Was there enforcement orders actually or complaints lodged before they actually lodged their planning application? I think we've lost Claire.
I think we've lost Claire.
So there was complaints received.
Sorry, Claire, just turn your camera off and that might work better for you. Otherwise, I might ask... Joe, would you mind jumping in, or Rory, would you mind jumping in at this point?
Is that a bit better?
That's better, Claire. I can hear you now.
So, Claire, just to clarify,
okay.
did you
Sorry.
hear my question? Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah, so there was complaints received before the application was lodged. That was your question.
Yeah, and so was there any enforcement?
Was
there any enforcement orders from council to rectify the breach?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Claire. We might just get you to mute. Rory, would you mind jumping in there?
Councillors, there were complaints received, and that's what led to this application being lodged. There weren't any enforcement proceedings when this application was lodged.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. I'll hand over to Councillor Murray for your question.
Thanks, Chair. It's not so much a question for Claire, but maybe you might even yourself be able to clarify this. But why isn't the applicant here tonight? Is there some explanation for that?
I'm unsure as to why they have chosen not to participate. Rory, do you have an understanding of that?
I don't know, councillors. I couldn't answer that question.
Thank you. Thank you. Rory, I've got a question for you in relation to, I didn't quite hear anything in relation to a body corporate. Is there a body corporate on this particular block in terms of the body corporate that sits over any of the land here?
Claire, are you familiar with that, Claire?
Yeah, so there is a body corporate included within this whole area.
And then the question then is, Claire, if there is a body corporate, how does it sit within those rules of the body corporate?
Yeah, so there is there are certain rules within the body corporate, and that was submitted with the application. But in terms of what we're looking at for the application, we can't consider what the rules of the body corporate say because they're separate legislation to what we're looking at. But I believe that there's certain rules about businesses occurring within this, within the whole area. So it's like the subdivision, including Idris Avenue and Daffodil Court. I think it goes up to there as well.
Right, that's an interesting thing. Maybe one of the objectors might understand. I think there may be one from the body corporate coming in. So let's pop that on hold at the moment. Councillor Aiken?
No, Kylie, sorry, I do apologise. I know you said put it on hold, but Claire's disclosing that she may know what the body corporate rule is. So do you want to share that with us if that's possible, Claire? Yeah.
I probably just need to bring it up again. Sorry.
Perhaps if I can just add while Claire's finding that, Madam Chair, is the rules of the body corporate wouldn't be enforced through council. That would be a civil issue we would need to undertake. So all we're dealing with is the Planning Environment Act and the planning scheme, and they're the rules that we need to consider with this decision.
Thank you. Councillor Aiken, does that answer your question at this point?
Look, it doesn't because I would, not to prejudice the case, but I would be uncomfortable creating conflict in the body corporate by issuing a permit. So that's why it is material for I think, and I appreciate Joanne's just giving a legal process procedure, but there is the consideration that if we're issuing a permit and it's in conflict with the body corporate rules, we're actually creating a civil matter unnecessarily. Sounds like it, yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Councillor Aiken. Would councillors be comfortable if we were to hear the submissions and then have a conversation at the end around what that implication might be? Yep, excellent. Okay, Officer Mel, would you mind admitting the first objector, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be admitting Ray Zammit, who's an objector to the application.
Thank you. Okay, let's hope that is going to work, Officer Mel. Officer Mel, would you mind submitting the next objector, just making sure that then the audio can join, but obviously mute them if we're speaking? Would that be okay, so we can move through these a little quicker?
Certainly, Madam Chair. We will now admit Anthony Hiddick, who is also joined by Sandra Hiddick and Thomas Hiddick, who each have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Excellent. Welcome. We'll just wait on the audio to join. Thank you. Welcome, Anthony. We've got you there, have we? And you can hear us? Fantastic. Thank you. Welcome to the Planning Committee. We're obviously speaking about the Idris Avenue application, and what I would do is say that you have around about 3 minutes to share your objection with us, and then we could ask some questions of you. You may get muted, and then we can unmute you to ask the questions, or I might jump in at some point, and what we'll do is we'll then move to Sandra, and then we'll move to the next person that you've got with you as well. So please feel free to start your submission.
Sorry, do you mind if Sandra goes first, or is it?
Sure.
Yeah,
More than welcome. Sandra, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much. My family have lived at 30 Idris Avenue for 30 years, purchased the land in an owners corporation, built a house, created a family, invested a large amount of money on our forever lifestyle property and home. We feel that since October 2019, it was all taken from us. Our property is adjacent to 20 Idris Avenue, and since October 2019 have endured relentless, intolerable noise virtually daily for up to 12 or more children jumping, screaming, playing in a created business playground area within a few metres of our bedrooms, living area and immediate backyard. The very large number of employees on site adds to the noise level as the kids are jumping around. The employees need to also speak extremely loudly. It is no different to having a large kids' party in your backyard on a daily basis. There is virtually no escape on our property from this intolerable noise. We are unable to open our home windows and doors to allow fresh air in, as the noise is amplified even more throughout the home. Family members at times work various shifts and it's impossible to sleep during the day. The only real respite from the noise is when we go to work. If we were retired, we could not live here. This is very upsetting, as our dream is to retire and enjoy the peace and quiet of our lifestyle property that we have worked so hard for over the last 30 years. We strongly believe our retirement dream will be denied if a planning permit is granted. Our family have no issues with the children. The kids are not at fault. Kids will always be kids. I'm sure all the councillors and planning officers here today enjoy your homes and backyards living in a normal residential environment. I hope you can appreciate what our family has endured for over 18 months. Perhaps imagine what it is like where you live and overnight it all changes and all you can hear and see on a daily basis is kids jumping and screaming and playing in a playground a few metres from your home and backyard. And this is to go on every day for weeks, months, years. Hopefully you can appreciate after 18 months of noise, it has also brought on concerning mental health issues in the family, As a result of what we have endured, the mental health is that affected that even if there are only a few children playing for 15 minutes, it has now the same effect as hearing 12 children playing for 4 hours. So any proposed permit conditions will have no effect on improving our mental health issues. 20 Idris Avenue is a workplace where people come and go, make noise on a daily basis, and at the end of the day, they go home to their castle. But this is our home where we deserve to feel comfortable and live in serenity. I therefore urge all councillors to refuse the planning permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Councillors, do you have any questions of Sandra at this point in time? Okay, what we might do is move to whomever you would like to go next. If
I'm happy to go next. Anthony, yeah.
Excellent, Anthony. Feel free to take your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. It has been obvious for our family and all owners, corporation lot owners, that the business is in the wrong spot. We are within a residential owners corporation where there are rules for property owners so all can enjoy the amenity, lifestyle and peace and quiet of one's property. The properties along Idris Avenue are narrow and the residential homes are very close to one another. The business clearly should be on a property of 10 or more acres where they are able to operate and grow their business activities and have no negative impact on the amenity or neighbours. We feel it is relevant and appropriate to this hearing to note that the business has in the last few months relocated all operations and activities to 215 Petulus Road, Lara. This was around the time when the public comment period began and ended, which was mid-February this year. The 215 Petulus Road, Lara property is 9 acres in size, 5 times the size of 20 Idris Avenue and away from immediate neighbours. The business Facebook page clearly shows all operational activity has moved to the Lara property and it shows all the playground equipment that was set up at 20 Idris Avenue, now at 215 Petulus Road, including many more farm animals. We have experienced how the business has grown in 18 months at 20 Idris Avenue, a huge increase in the number of kids plus employees. The business website promotes the business has grown to a team of 28 staff and approximately 80 clients in a 2-year time frame. So it came as no surprise to see on Facebook that in the period of the last few months, one can see more clients and more growth in the business since the relocation to a larger property at 215 Petulus Road, Lara. My family kindly asked to please make the right call on this planning permit application. By refusing a planning permit, you are returning my family to enjoying their property of 30 years and as a result, begin the repair of the mental health issues that exist due to the 18 months of noise. By refusing a planning permit, you are preserving the amenity of this owners corporation and respecting the body corporate regulations and laws. You are also supporting all lot owners' wishes, of which many are elderly who just want to live their lives enjoying the peace and quiet that the area and amenity provides. All lot owners have a right to this simple request. By refusing a planning permit, you are also supporting the growth of the business to operate in a suitable location where it can keep growing and develop where there is no negative impact to the amenity and immediate neighbours. The 9-acre property at 215 Petulus Road, Lara, where the business has relocated to, seems to be an ideal location for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Councillors, any questions of Anthony at the moment? All right. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Possibly following on from Councillor Aitken's concerns before, you say you're a member of the body corporate. Is that against the rules of the body itself to have that business next door?
Absolutely. It is. You require the body corporate permission. It's part of the model laws that you can't change your property from a residential to a commercial without the body corporate support, and there hasn't been any of that sort to the body corporate committee over that 18-month period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. And I guess I might hear Thomas's submission if that's okay, and then I might ask some further questions of you all whilst you're with us. So, Thomas, would you like to take your time right now?
Yeah, I'll do that. Thanks. I'm a current university student in my final years of study. My study area is in my bedroom, located adjacent to the child playground area at 20 Idris Avenue, where there is commonly a large amount of noise throughout the day. In 2020, university subjects were moved online due to COVID-19. I found it difficult to concentrate and complete assignments and coursework on time due to these disturbances outside my window. Even though there were stay-at-home restrictions in regional Victoria, there was still continuous activity which affected my studies. Additionally, I had to relocate away from my current residence temporarily to complete this work to ensure I can study effectively. This was a necessary course of action, as no matter where I moved in the house, I could still hear noise and activity outside. Unfortunately, 2021 has become similar to last year, with university subjects and assignments to be completed online. This is extremely concerning, as noise outside my window will continually interrupt my studies, and I will be forced to relocate away from home to ensure I complete my work and study effectively. I cannot comprehend how this business can operate with no permit since October 2019 in a residential area and make such a negative impact to neighbours located adjacent to the property. I have witnessed firsthand the mental strain of what continuous noise can place on a family. I have growing family health concerns from 18 months of strain from this property, which is becoming increasingly serious. Together with my family, I've enjoyed the surrounds of Idris Avenue and the common land of the owners' corporation for 20 years, and is extremely upsetting that a business can destroy this with their daily activities. I believe the report has recommended conditions to limit the number of children to 8, together with 9 employees, to in theory limit the noise to an acceptable level. I can categorically say these conditions will have little to no effect or on any reduction on noise. The children are always outside more than they are inside. When it's a nice day, they'll be outside in the playground for the whole day, which means they're outside my window playing and screaming for the whole day. The only time they're inside for most of the day is when it's raining. I would appreciate the correct outcome to refuse this planning permit application so I can complete my final 2 years of university studies effectively, and my family can return to enjoying the surrounds of the property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Councillors, I'll go to you at this point. If there are any questions of the Hiddick family while we've got them with us. Councillor Aiken.
What was actually on the site before October 2019 then? So was it a different owner and it was just a residential property, or is it the same people and they've had other activities occurring on it?
The owners are the Greek Orthodox Church, and they're leasing the property to this business. And so they are in breach of body corporate rules as a result as well, because they never sought permission to change the purpose of the lot from residential to commercial. So they're the owners, and they've been owners there for many, many years. It has changed hands from other families over the years, but they are the current owners at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Thank you. So, interestingly, I was curious as to the body corporate. Now, can you give us a quick snapshot about how the body corporate was brought about and why a body corporate sort of sits on the rural piece of land? We usually see body corporates in unit developments and things like that. So I wondered maybe if you've got a quick overview. We'll come to you, Ray, in just a moment. We'll just speak to Anthony here. Anthony, are you able to give us a quick overview as to why the body corporate was brought into this particular area?
I believe one of the speakers, I'm not sure if Tom is coming up, but he mentioned he was going to comment about that. But it's all back to the Shire Corio days, when Lovely Banks was traditionally a 5-acre lot area. Right. And the only way to subdivide to a 2-acre lot was via a body corporate arrangement and with common land, common parkland where people can walk around and enjoy. So it's a legacy from the Shire Corio days, but a lot of the information seems to have been lost from the City of Great Geelong, because all of us were we all saw in writing that you weren't allowed to run businesses. There were restrictions for the enjoyment of the land, but for some reason, City of Great Geelong does not have it, but it is on the Shire. But it was back then on the Shire Corio.
All right. Thank you very much for that, and I'm sure we'll hear some more about that going forward from other submissions. Thank you very much to you all for coming to the Planning Committee. We'll now move on to the next person. We already have that person in our meeting. Ray Zammit, welcome to you, and you may unmute yourself, and you've got around 3 minutes or so, and either you'll be muted or I'll come on to there to tell you that your time is up, but please feel free to make your submission.
Okay, my submission's already been made. Can you hear me? Can you? Oh, good-o.
Yes, we can.
Thanks. I thank the Planning Department for sending me out all this extra information. The landlord disclosure statement I found excessively interesting. Part 9, where the landlord acknowledges that he has not kept anything hidden from the leaseor. And it appears that he has not made it known to the leaseor that this is an owner's corporation. There is another part in the disclosure statement that says, does planning authority allow your proposal to use the premises under planning law? That's directed directly at the leaseor. And the leaseor made no attempt to contact planning to find out what constraints are attached to this block of land. Does the premise comply with building and safety regulations? Is the premise affected by outstanding notices by authority? The authority of the owner's corporation, body corporations don't exist anymore. They went out with the moon. They're either a cluster subdivision according to land data, or they're owner clusters. Owner corporation. The OC 133 Management Committee has been completely sidestepped at the signing of the tenancy agreement. The next bit of information I got was a printout of the Planning Committee meeting number 216. Page 40 shows that the general amenity, point B, appearance of any buildings, works or materials is part of the fact that any planning decisions must not affect the general amenity of the area. If you go to the title plan, which was submitted to planning, page 27 of 39, and a second page, page 17 of 39, and another document submitted by the leaseor to the planning, which is a layout of the buildings on the lot. Firstly, on the layout of the buildings on the lot, there is a chicken pen on the north fence line, B, 2 sheds, a stable and a garage on the south fence line. Not shown in the drawing of this layout is another shed centrally located on the west boundary with the common land. Also not shown on this layout supplied to planning is a post and rail fence on this west boundary with the common land. Page 54 of the planning commitment of the Planning Committee meeting states, amenity impacts, noise and smells. I made my objection on the amenity to me of the area. I see that they do not mention that it is the visual impact of this change that's really affecting me. The construction of these buildings on the property boundary and the construction of this post.
Sorry, Ray, we've just muted you. Ray, we've just muted you at the moment. Ray, I'll just unmute you quickly. Just got a final statement there so you can finish off your submission. You've just got a final statement to finish off. Sorry, let's unmute yourself there, Ray, if you can.
I'm on page 4 of 6.
Yeah, so just a final statement if you can, Ray, and then we can ask some questions of you.
The planning people say that there is no covenant. I point you to the title pages 27 and 19 on the title, where it clearly states that there is a building envelope and that all fences have to be of rural nature, post and wire. Everything that I've just said before is completely and contradictory to that, and it definitely affects the amenity of my area where I've been for such a long time. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your submission. And councillors, open it to you for questions of Ray whilst we have him with us. Ray, a question that I had was in relation to the owners corporation, as you call it now, and because we don't refer to them as body corporates anymore. How long has that owners corporation been in effect that you can remember?
I think it was 1988. It was put into effect, the old Jones Farm on Monastery Hill, opposite the monastery, and it was stage 1, which ran along the then Rollins Road, which is now Bluestone Bridge Road, and went all the way down basically to Evans Road.
Right.
It was subdivided in stages. There are 4 stages. There are 34 lots. Out of those objectors, the 30, they are all owners corporation lot owners. Only 4 didn't know about it or didn't object.
Yep. Thank you very much. Councillors, any last questions of Ray whilst we have him on the line? Okay, Ray, thank you very much for your submission. We'll admit some further people and we'll make a decision in relation to this at the end. Thank you very much for taking the time. Mel, would you mind submitting the next person, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. I'm admitting June Black.
Excellent. Hello, June, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Thank you very much and welcome to the Planning Committee. June, you've got around 3 minutes or so to state your objections and make a submission to us, and then I'll probably jump in, or you may get muted at some point, and then there may be some time for questions from councillors after that. So you've got around 3 minutes, so feel free to start when you're ready.
Okay. To understand what we have experienced for 18 months, one needs to have lived in one of the neighbouring properties. Therefore, to understand the nature of the business at 20 Idris Avenue, the 30 objections should not be ignored. The business does many good things for its clients. Unfortunately, the business has a significant negative impact on the immediate neighbours. Since October 2019, the business has demonstrated total contempt and disregard to the amenity, the owners corporation and neighbours. This contempt and disregard is also reflected in the planning permit application, where information provided is lacking and misleading relative to what has actually been happening for the last 18 months. As a result, the council has been deceived. Disability. It's easy to get caught up in the emotion of the word disability. All objectors believe the officer's report has been clouded or distracted by that word, disability. Claire McVilling noted the use for disability services not defined within the planning scheme, so it seems the easy option for it was to be classified as innominate. Claire McVilling states in the report the use is considered innominate. Whilst there are similarities to a childcare centre, the proposal includes a range of people with disabilities and ages. If Claire McVillie lived next door, she would not have come to this conclusion. The fact is that since October 2019, enduring daily business activity noise, 95% of the business activities experienced on site are associated with children from kindergarten to primary school age. This is easily confirmed on the business's Facebook page. Also confirmed on the Facebook page and seen in real life, the children all go to mainstream schools. They jump around, scream and play on the playground. Anyone in the street would think they may not have a disability, just kids having fun in the playground. Indoor, outdoor activities. What has been endured for 18 months is kids mainly outside, jumping around, screaming, playing and going inside for a break, which is the opposite to what is being falsely claimed on the permit application. The permit application falsely states that kids are mainly indoors and go outside for breaks. Kids are just being kids and they want to be outside on the playground, not stuck indoors. And that's what's experienced virtually daily for 18 months. Residential versus commercial property use. The report Claire McVilly is suggesting changes to a property from residential classification to commercial use. This goes against the wishes of all the lot owners and does not respect the Owners Corporation regulations and laws that forbid this action. Therefore, we believe the permit should be classified as an NDIS childcare facility. This is what it is. This facility should ideally be located at a purpose-built facility like other childcare centres are, or at least on a larger property where there is no negative impact to immediate neighbours. And really, just as neighbours out here, we want to support the immediate neighbours to this centre. We're all friends and we're all communicating all the time, and we really feel for these people, and we hope that you decide against them being there.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission, June. And councillors, have you got any questions of June whilst June is with us online? June, I don't think we have any questions for you at this stage, but thank you for your submission, and we'll look forward to making a decision at the end. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Officer Mel, would you mind admitting the next person, please?
Certainly. I'll be admitting Craig Bassett, who's an objector to the application.
Thank you. Excellent. Let's see. Just waiting on the audio to connect. Won't be a moment. Excellent. There we go. Would you mind closing down that other screen that you might have open, Craig? But welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. We welcome you to this one for Idris Avenue. You've got around 3 minutes or so to make your submission, and we may end up sort of cutting you off or muting you at some point, so please don't take offence. Please feel free to start your submission when you're ready. You might want to come off mute.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Appreciate the prompt. Good evening, all. I am the current chairman of the Mastic Garden Owners Corporation, of which 20 Idris Avenue is a member. I'd like to thank the council for this opportunity to provide some additional information. The Mastic Garden Owners Corporation consists of 38 lot owners, many of whom have objected to the planning application. It is of some concern that we've been asked to provide our objections to an incomplete planning application, and that many of the plans and reports required in conditions which govern this application will only become available after the permit is granted. We have noted that the conditions in the planning permit appear to have addressed many of our objections to the intended use, particularly the environmental impact to the common property, if complied with. However, the business making this application appears to have shown little regard for the rules and regulations which govern the property or our community, as demonstrated by their past practice as experienced by their neighbouring properties. The past operation of the business appears to be inconsistent with the business practice for which the planning permit is applied. The Owners Corporation fear that granting of this planning permit will result in an ongoing negative impact, and further non-compliance once the permit is granted will result in further misery whilst we seek redress. Lot owners are concerned the business will not be a good neighbour, having already ignored the neighbourhood by not attempting to mitigate the impact of their business, particularly the intrusive noise in our community when made aware of our concerns. Compliance with their civic responsibility has only been achieved by complaint to the City of Greater Geelong. Many residents have commented on the return of the peaceful quiet following the relocation of the business operation during the planning permit application and fear the tranquility of where we live, many for more than 20 years, will be irrevocably destroyed should the business return with the grant of this application. We note also that in the response to objection 7, the near map photograph fails to show the proximity of the business and the playground to its nearest neighbour and gives a false sense of separation from the nearest other dwelling. We believe the business and lot owners have imposed their demands on our community without consultation as required in the Owners Corporation rules and regulations. Planning is an action that occurs before a business commences, not afterwards, and includes consultation with those who may be affected by the operation of the business. On this occasion, we hope the Council are able to provide a strong example of why we have a planning scheme to give guidance for the enjoyment of where we live. Not granting this permit sends a clear message to others that they cannot dismiss the planning regulations designed to protect our neighbourhoods, nor circumvent the planning process by starting a business and only consider their civic responsibility when called to account. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Craig. And councillors, I'll open it up to questions of Craig if you have any. Councillor Murray.
Good evening, Craig. Just where do you live from this property?
I'm about 4 houses away in Mary Ann Court.
Okay, thank you.
Helps if I unmute. Craig, I've got a question for you as the Owners Corporation Chair. The view that normally when you would either lease a property or sell a property, is it right that you need to get an Owners Corporation certificate or something of that kind? What's the rule there in terms of that?
So specifically, it's about the change of use of the property. So there is a rule that states that prior to the change of use of property, there'll be consultation with the Owners Corporation.
And in this case, that hasn't been done, is that correct?
No, the first that the Owners Corporation became aware that a business was going to operate from that location was a sign that appeared on the front of the property. The sign is in direct opposition to the rule that states that there'll be no advertising or business hoardings on the front of the properties.
Right, so you wouldn't be able to put a for sale sign or a for lease sign up on the property either, is that the case?
I would imagine if the property was for sale, you could put a for sale sign up, but specifically it relates to the operation of a business.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Mason, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Look, just to change the subject a little bit, Craig, could you confirm what we've heard earlier, that there are large numbers of children using being clients for the site, and it's not necessarily operating as a disabled utility?
Thanks, Councillor. I can't speak from personal experience because I haven't been at the property when the children have been there. The evidence that I have is the photographs that are provided on the company's website and the large number of cars that are parked at the property and come and go from the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions of Craig? There, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Craig. Thank you for your submission. I've just got a question with respect to the mismatch about the construction of certain items on the property against the planning permit. Can you confirm whether or not the Owners Corporation was contacted with regard to constructing things? I think there was a mention of a fence and a couple of shelters for animals and things like that. Could you confirm if the Owners Corporation was consulted on that?
Thanks, Councillor. The Owners Corporation hasn't been consulted in any way or at any time in relation to anything that was happening at 20 Idris Avenue, either by the leaseor or by the owner of the property. It's almost as if we didn't exist, which I get is one of the main concerns of all the lot owners. Like, we're all neighbours. We all get on. It's been a great community to live in. Where there's been a dispute, we've sorted it out through the committee or amongst ourselves. the total disregard for the fact that the property sits in an owners corporation is what causes our greatest concern. It's as if we didn't exist, that they didn't have any neighbours.
Thanks for your response.
Thank you. Councillor Aiken?
Just a follow-up question from Councillor Maloney, Craig. So has yourself, you're the chair of the body corporate, is that correct?
I'm the current chair and have been for the last 2-3 years.
Okay. And has the body corporate actually made contact with the owner and the business to advise them that they're in breach of the owners corporation's rules and regulations?
We haven't written to them formally, no. I have had an informal meeting with one of the people from that property, and I addressed a complaint. There was a complaint from the owner of the business about some things that were being said, and as a response to that, as the chairman, I wrote to the members of the lot and just reminded them that we are all neighbours, and that we need to conduct ourselves civilly.
So there's no at this point of stage though, until the permit process was actually undertaken, there hasn't been any formal action by the body corporate that the activities have been in breach of the owners corporation's rules and guidelines.
Not specifically from the Owners Corporation Committee. There has been from individual owners.
Right, no,
individual lot owners, I apologise.
No, Craig, that's fine. It's really just educating us about the processes, so thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig, and we might move on to the next submitter. Thank you for taking the time out of your time tonight. Thank you. Officer Mel, would you mind submitting the next person, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Colin Hatton has been admitted and he's an objector to the application.
Thank you. Excellent. Colin, welcome. Can you hear us and see us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Welcome to the Planning Committee. We've got around 3 or so minutes for your submission, and you may get muted or we may jump in at some point, so please don't be offended. Feel free to start your submission now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so we're based in Olwen Court, which is at the far west end of the subdivision. So no, haven't been impacted directly by the recent events in Idris Avenue, but we are definitely concerned about the precedences that might be set as a result of this application. So I just want to talk about those matters. Firstly, hopefully we've got 2 things to protect us in this instance. From the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme, we have the objectives and policies of clause 22.04, which you all no doubt are very conversant with. But most importantly, we have you, the elected officials and decision makers, serving to protect the rights and well-being of the electorate in matters such as this. The objectives and policies of clause 22.04 are all framed around maintaining the character of these developments, setting high expectations for their amenity and discouraging uses which are contrary to these goals. Amenity is the key element for landowners, and yet it's probably the most challenging to define. For those that haven't lived in such an environment, it's probably the hardest thing to get a handle on as to what it means to us. It's a feeling, it's an intangible. And to borrow a phrase from a classic movie, it's the Constitution, it's Mabo, it's justice, it's the law, it's just the vibe, Your Honour. What I'm trying to get across is that amenity is a very personal and key element as to how we enjoy what we've set up for ourselves and our families. And by approving such applications, takes something from us that can never be returned. By now,
take-
you'd be
please
aware
take
of
your
the
time,
personal
Colin.
turmoil that the Hiddick family have been forced to endure. So before coming to your final decision, the acid test is to ask yourself the question, if this were me and my family, would I be voting to approve or reject the application? Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. We appreciate the time you've taken to give us your submission today. Councillors, have you got any questions of Colin at this point? No. Thank you, Colin. We appreciate you taking the time out and we can hear the emotion in your voice, so we appreciate you taking the time to share that with us. We have one more objector to hear from, and then we will be making a decision on this matter. Thank you, Colin. Officer Mel, would you mind popping through the next person, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. The last speaker is an objector, John Callaghan.
Welcome, John. Looks like you're in already. Can you hear us well?
I can hear you, but there's about 3 or 4 conversations going on.
There you go, John. We can hear you okay there. So welcome to the Planning Committee. We've got around 3 minutes or so to give us your submission. At some point, we may waive or cut you off or mute you at some point. So please feel free to start your submission when you're ready.
I'm sorry.
I can hear you, John, if that works.
Yeah.
Excellent. Go for it.
I was watching the meeting.
We're a bit of a lag time happening between the live stream and us, but please feel free to start your 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, actually, the Planning Committee itself seems to have been aware of the main objection that I have, which is to the sewer system that's up there, that's in no way can the septic tank system take that number of people. It cannot deal with that many people. It's an environmental hazard, really. That was my first thought when you see all these people running around there. It's not a shopping centre, it's a house to live in. Other than that, it just doesn't belong there. It's a household, it's a dwelling. And if it's going to upset our neighbours, of course we're not going to need it there or want it there. And I think the council or planning committee or council should really have a look at the number of objectors out of the total owners corporation. I think there's 30 objections out of 38 owners, and some of them don't live there. Some of them are vacant blocks. So it's a fairly well universal, objection. As I say, you keep looking like you're going to talk to them.
I don't know whether you finished, John, but I'm more than happy. You've still got some more time if you need to say anything else.
No, as I say, the council went into the environmental part of it, but yeah, it's not good to see our neighbours upset. I mean, I live probably a couple of 100 metres away from them, but you know, it doesn't worry me to that extent. Like, I can hear them sometimes. I can hear them bellowing and carrying on, but the other thing was the animal enclosure there, the amount of animals that they had in there, that should have been looked at by the RSPCA, because the ground's just clear. It's just mud. There's no feed. They propped it all down. It was just cruel, actually, to have that many animals in the one little compound. That's about all I've got to say. As I say, the council did it all for me.
Excellent. Thank you, John. We appreciate you taking the time out tonight to make your submission. Councillors, I'll open it up for questions of John. No questions, John. Oh, sorry, Councillor Maloney, you've got a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, John, for your submission. I've just got a question with respect to the enclosures that you just mentioned. Did you at any point notify the RSPCA or Animal Management at Council about your concerns?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I wish I had it, but you you don't like upsetting neighbours, even though they're not neighbours.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. All right, thank you, John. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll now deliberate and make a decision. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your submission. Officer Mel, I think that's it for submissions. Is that right?
Correct. John was the last submitter to speak.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, councillors, any further questions that you may have of the officers that are here at the moment? No? Councillors, I'd like to move an alternate recommendation to 20 Idris Avenue, Lovely Banks, and I'm sure that you have the alternate. If you don't, I'm happy to read it out for you.
We have it.
You've got it? Comfortable with it? All right. Is there any person to second that motion? Councillor Aiken, I did see your hand go up first. You're happy to second the motion? All right. I might just speak to that motion if that's okay. I think there is some concerns from my perspective about the amenity of people. Okay, sorry, I've just got a message to say that people won't know what the alternate recommendation is, so I just need to read that. So the alternate recommendation is that responsible authority, having considered all matters which the Planning Environment Act 1987 requires it to consider, decides to refuse the granting of a planning permit for the use of the land for disability services facilities on the following grounds. The proposal does not accord with the planning policy framework or the local planning policy framework, including the municipal strategic statement, and the application proposes an incompatible use in an area identified for the protection of rural residential amenity. Number two, the proposal is inconsistent with the objectives of clause 22.04, as the amenity of the surrounding dwellings would not be adequately protected. The application has not demonstrated how wastewater and stormwater drainage will be managed, and the use includes a substantial number of people visiting the site. Number three, that the proposal does not satisfy the decision guidelines at clause 35.03-5 of the rural living zone. Notably, the use of the land on the site has not reasonably established how it is compatible with the adjoining and nearby land uses. That is the motion that the alternate motion that I'm putting forward. I think in relation to, if I might just speak to it, there are quite a few other points that I'd probably like to put on the motion but won't. It's in terms of the owners corporation. I think that's a really important mechanism by which these lots were divided up in the very beginning, to have a really rural feel but have a community of people that sit around that owners corporation. They have kept the owners corporation alive for a long time, the 38 lots, and it sounds like they have made a real community out there in Idris Avenue and the surrounds. I hear the impassionate pleas of the people that live right next door, the Hiddicks, and I can hear in their submission that they are really concerned about their quality of life, and I think that's what's really turned me at the moment in relation to this application. So upon hearing all the application, of all the documents that I've read today and the submissions, I'm recommending to you, councillors, to approve the alternate recommendation. Councillor Aiken, I'll throw to you to second.
Thank you very much, Chair Grisbeck. Yeah, look, I support the recommendation that we refuse to grant a planning permit. I think the objectors have actually mounted a very good case why we should consider that. I think it is important to acknowledge that officers are making a decision that is contrary to ourselves, because they are actually correct with the legal component of it, that the body corporate isn't considered as part of the Planning Act. It may have actually been the case back in 1988 when it was established by the Shire of Corio, but certainly the planning legislation and rules which we operate under now have been clearly articulated to us by our officers, saying that we can't take into consideration the decision about the owner's corporation, but I think we have a moral and ethical obligation to actually protect the interests of the owner's corporation principles. And that is that if it's quite clearly stated that business activities should not be occurring within the precinct without the consent of the owner's corporation, that certainly should have been requested. But I do acknowledge that it sounds like the operators and the owner of the land have not fulfilled those requirements because they've actually never been asked for them officially by the owner's corporation. So there's some procedure issues there that need to be considered. However, my reasonings for supporting the rejection of the planning permit, look, the use of the land and the way it's been demonstrated to us by the objectors, it is incompatible with the adjoining and nearby land uses. This is actually rural living zone, and it really does sound like people have made choices to live in that area as a residential rural living zone, and it is incompatible if a neighbouring property does generate noise, which we know children do when they're externally and in a playground environment. We do know that that we're trying to cap the number of children at that site under the proposal from the officers. We also know that there's a significant number of employees that are accessing that site as well too, from what it's proposed. So as a consequence, with all of those activities, I think they are significantly incompatible with a rural living zone. So I support the rejection motion, Chair Grisbeck.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Look, I believe what the applicant's application perhaps could be supported, and after reading the papers this afternoon, I was of some belief that they had a fair case, but it's amazing, isn't it, when you get emotion versus the facts, a little bit like we've heard tonight, and the alternate that you put up, I mean, doesn't mention body corporate or owners corporation, but and perhaps that shouldn't be taken into account, but I think that people, when they purchased property in this area, should have some confidence that a commercial business will not be set up within them years down the track. They become used to the lifestyle, and this is a real curveball that we simply can't ignore, and I'm not ignoring it. It's not about what the business is, but that it is a business, and it's set up amongst them. It seems there's too many grey areas for me. It seems that the original business was set up and it seemed pretty loose, and so I support the alternative to refuse to grant the planning permit.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors wish to speak on this at the moment? No? Oh, Councillor Mason?
Furthermore, thank you, Chair Grisbeck. Furthermore, in addition to what's been said, I think that what the residents have said is overwhelming. In that the evidence, the suggestion presented that there's only eight people there as clients is a little bit. I find that hard to believe. I think that there's been a lack of transparency generally on this. and it's a much heavier load on the community than what has been presented. So that's yet another element of why I would support the alternate motion. And it's interesting that the proponent's not here tonight as well, and they may well have their evidence to or an argument to put forward in regard why they have a bigger place elsewhere, but it all points towards a rather larger operation in Idris Street and Idris Avenue than what we would have been led to believe. So I support the alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. If there's no further comments, I'll just say a couple of comments in closing, is that I don't necessarily think we've heard the last of this application. By the sound from the objections from what they've seen locally is that the business from their in view is moved premise. So I'm keen to, obviously we're dealing with this application in front of us right now. So, and in saying that, I feel quite strongly about not ruining the amenity and the community feel that we have out there in Idris Avenue. So upon saying that, councillors, I'm going to put the alternate recommendation to the vote. All those in favour of the alternate recommendation? That is carried. Thank you very much for your time tonight, councillors. We really appreciate that. Thank you, officers, for your time, and we call the meeting to a close. Thank you.